I don't get it, Mrs. Callahan. I've poured everything into this place, my time, my energy, my heart. I've worked harder than anyone else, stayed longer, cared more. And yet, here I am, watching others get ahead while I stay in the same place, invisible. I mean, is it wrong to expect a little acknowledgement? Just once. I want someone to look at me and say, "You made a difference," or "We couldn't do this without you." But no, it's like they've come to expect my best. And because of that, they've stopped seeing it altogether. How is that fair? Be the light they can count on. A lesson in true success. Once upon a time, in a bustling city hospital, there was a young nurse named Sabrina. Sabrina had started at the hospital as a fresh graduate, eager to learn and make a difference. The hospital was a world unto itself, with hallways that never seemed to sleep and machines that monitored life's rhythms with a steady hum. Sabrina was assigned to work with an experienced nurse named Mrs. Callahan, known for her kindness and dedication. Mrs. Callahan was the go-to person for anyone in need of guidance. She wasn't just knowledgeable. Her compassion and steady presence made her beloved by both patients and staff. From the beginning, Mrs. Callahan shared her 3 golden rules with Sabrina: listen more, do more, and never stop learning. Sabrina took these words to heart, and rather than sticking to her assigned tasks alone, she made an effort to learn everything she could about the hospital's workings. She learned to read complicated charts, mastered emergency response procedures, and even took on scheduling and paperwork that helped keep the floor running smoothly. Over the years, Sabrina transformed from a novice into one of the most dependable nurses in the hospital. Then, one day, Mrs. Callahan retired. Sabrina was sad to see her mentor go, but was confident she'd been well prepared. She stepped into Mrs. Callahan's role seamlessly, embodying her mentor's advice. Sabrina was often the first to arrive and the last to leave, always attentive and dedicated. If a patient needed extra care, she was there. If a crisis arose, she handled it. Over time, Sabrina became the hospital's go-to nurse, trusted by doctors, staff, and patients alike. But despite her hard work and devotion, Sabrina couldn't help but notice something troubling. As the years went by, she saw other nurses, some with less experience, receiving promotions and opportunities for higher-paying positions. Frustration crept in. She'd done everything right, followed her mentor's teachings, and yet her efforts seemed to go unrecognized. Why was she still in the same position? One evening, feeling disheartened, Sabrina decided to visit Mrs. Callahan. Hoping the wise nurse could offer her some clarity, Mrs. Callahan welcomed her warmly, quickly noticing the frustration in Sabrina's face. "What's on your mind?" she asked, her gaze understanding and calm. Sabrina sighed deeply. "I followed everything you taught me. I worked hard, listened more than I spoke, and learned every skill I could. Yet, years later, I'm still in the same role. Others are moving up, even those with less dedication and experience. I don't understand. Haven't I proven my worth here?" Mrs. Callahan paused, a gentle smile forming. "Sabrina, are you absolutely certain that the hospital couldn't manage without you?" "Yes," Sabrina replied, a touch defensively. "I've taken on so many responsibilities. I'm the one who holds things together." After a thoughtful pause, Mrs. Callahan nodded knowingly. "Then it's time to take a step back. Request a day off. Let others see what it's like to manage without you." Sabrina blinked, taken aback. A day off? It seemed counterintuitive, but the more she thought about it, the more sense it made. Maybe she had been so reliable that no one realized how much she actually handled. Perhaps stepping back, just briefly, would reveal her true value. The next day, Sabrina requested time off, and it was granted without hesitation. She spent the day away, feeling an odd mix of guilt and relief. When she returned, she was called into the nursing director's office. The director looked at her, both smiling and frowning. "Sabrina, we ran into several issues yesterday. Without you here, the team struggled to keep things running smoothly. We realized how essential you are." To Sabrina's astonishment, she was offered a promotion to lead nurse. Finally, her dedication was being recognized. From that day forward, whenever Sabrina felt overlooked, she remembered Mrs. Callahan's advice. Occasionally, she'd take a day off, letting others experience the hospital without her. Each time, her value became even more evident, and she earned further promotions, eventually leading an entire department. One morning, however, as Sabrina arrived at the hospital, she was met by her supervisor. With a heavy heart, her supervisor informed her that her employment had been terminated. Shocked, Sabrina felt crushed. She'd thought she'd proven herself time and again. How could this happen? Seeking answers, she went to Mrs. Callahan, feeling the weight of loss and confusion. "Why did I lose my job?" she asked, voice filled with hurt. "I followed everything you taught me. I became indispensable, didn't I?" Mrs. Callahan listened, then smiled gently. "Sabrina, you followed the first half of the lesson well. You understood that people often only see the value of something once it's missing. But there was a second part to the lesson." Sabrina frowned, sensing she'd overlooked something important. "What was the second part?" Mrs. Callahan spoke softly. "If a light bulb flickers off too often, people start to doubt its reliability. They look for one that doesn't leave them in the dark unexpectedly." The truth hit Sabrina with unexpected clarity. In her desire to be valued, she had unintentionally shown her superiors that she wasn't always there when they needed her. Instead of revealing her worth by stepping back occasionally, she had created a sense of unpredictability. With a new understanding, Sabrina thanked Mrs. Callahan and left with a heart that was both heavy and enlightened. She realized that being truly dependable meant not just showing her value, but being consistently present. From that day forward, she promised herself to be the light that others could always count on, steady and unwavering. The story teaches us that reliability and consistency are as important as skill and dedication. While it's crucial to make others aware of our value, it's equally important to show that we can be counted on day in and day out. Sometimes we think stepping back briefly will make people notice us, but too many absences can lead them to question our dependability. Success comes not just from showcasing our abilities, but also from being a steady presence that others can trust, even when we're not always in the spotlight. Subscribe for a daily dose of uplifting short stories that warm your heart and brighten your day. Listen, enjoy, and let's spread positivity together.